Okay, our next speaker, you'll recall from this morning's wonderful Thanksgiving address, is Dr. Jason Corwin. He's the Executive Director of Seneca Media and Communications Center, a department of the Seneca Nation, and a member of its Watershed Resources Working Group. He holds a PhD in Natural Resources from Cornell University and has worked extensively as a community-based media and environmental educator. Welcome, Dr. Corwin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, again. And we're going to have to bear along with, we ran into some technical issues at lunchtime, but hopefully this is all going to work out nice and as smoothly as possible. These things happen. So Onodowa'ga is our name for ourselves, and it refers to a hill in the Finger Lakes region of central New York at the southeastern corner of Canandaigua Lake. And it's a place that was central to our community for a very long time. And Seneca is just one of those kind of modern names that's stuck and is commonly used, just like you hear Mohawk and Oneida and Cayuga, and those aren't actually our real names. But so it's very much grounded in a very specific place that has a unique geological feature. Too much to get into at this time. This talk is actually something that I usually give at colleges and universities, or for about 45, 50 minutes. So we're getting the super condensed version for you, just like you got the really condensed Thanksgiving address this morning. So, to understand now and the environmental protection efforts that the Seneca Nation and Seneca community members engage in, we've got to, rewind to the beginning of time. And, our creation story is represented in this painting by John Thomas, excellent Onondaga artist. People are familiar with Turtle Island. They've heard of Turtle Island. And there's a very long story that details how our oldest ancestor came from a sky world and came down to where there was nothing but water, and the animals and birds took care of her, in particular the giant sea turtle, provided a place that then, with her powers, she was able to dance into creation, this land that we live on now. So, just to understand what it is that that we look to in our history, we had a way of life for a very long time that was based on Three Sisters agriculture, and prior to that, corn, for whatever reason, took dominance in the last maybe 1,000 years plus. But there were other crops prior to corn. But this is a painting by Ernest Smith, a Seneca artist from about a century ago, representing corn, beans, and squash. And of course, hunting, fishing, gathering nuts, berries, different wild plants were how people subsisted for a very long time, until things changed with being entered into really the start of the global economy a couple hundred years ago, with trade with the British for furs and of beaver and deer, which were very valuable to the European economy. And we became quite enamored with things like brass kettles and steel knives, guns, and other things of technology. That's a whole long history lesson that we have to get into, but it's important to understand that just like any people around the world, for the vast majority of human history, we were very dependent on our local environment for everything, for water, for food, sustenance, and for a sense of spiritual belonging. And so ganö is another way we talk about the Thanksgiving address. And, it's really about acknowledging everything from what's under our feet to what's around us on earth, and then what we see in the heavens. And so, as you heard, we go systematically and acknowledge each of those things. And I should say, we generally think of it not as a prayer, only because prayer tends to have a connotation in English of asking for something. And you're beseeching a higher power to please help out with this, or, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? or exactly. So that's kind of, that we just see it as it's rather than asking for something, we just be thankful for what we have. And we have life every day, and we have, an amazing world that we live in that provides our sustenance. So it's just an artistic representation of everything. We even see one of our most significant medicines, the wild ginger, we call a squintat. And, we see the elements, birds, the animals, water, and of course the centrality of the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. So to move into the 20th century and understand some of the environmental challenges that our communities have faced. So obviously we've been reduced in our land base to very small parcels of what was millions of acres of our original homelands, from all the way from the Finger Lakes to Lake Erie. And along the Allegheny River, due to things taking place here in this city of Pittsburgh with massive amounts of flooding, and the industries down here, Heinz 57 included, were not very happy about the damage, nor was the city. And so the Army Corps of Engineers came up with a dam project, and it was at a time when dams were being built all across the country, and people were really trying to tame nature. And I was thinking when I walked here yesterday, just the disjuncture between worldviews. The first thing I encountered coming onto the campus was a statue of Christopher Columbus, and I said, "Oh, this is ironic." And then to come into this facility that's state of the art, green. This is where we need to go. So we've had a lot of collision of worldviews for all indigenous people around the world, and this was a major one for us, where this dam was built in Pennsylvania and flooded out 1/3 of the Allegheny territory. Basically, all our best farmland, places where the sacred places, burial grounds, was all flooded. And there was an alternative that one of the most eminent hydrogeologists of his time had come up with, an alternate plan that wouldn't have had that impact. But unfortunately, politics being what they were, President Kennedy allowed them to violate a treaty that actually George Washington had made with our people in 1794, that we would not be disturbed any further in our land. And so before the flooding happened, they burned all the homes and bulldozed all of them. And the elders of that time, many of them passed away within a couple of years, just from the heartbreak of the relocation and seeing everything lost. And that's just an exhibit from our museum with some remnants, and you can see the photograph of the Kinzua Dam behind it. Our other territory, which is 45 minutes north, is the Cattaraugus territory, and it is just downstream from the biggest nuclear waste storage site currently in North America. It was supposed to be a state-of-the-art technological wonder to reprocess spent nuclear fuel into new fuel, and it was a total failure. The company bailed, and the Department of Energy and NYSERDA were left holding the bag, and we were left downstream with this thing breaching containment walls. And you can see the high levels of radioactivity, and it's a little hard to see, but those black lines are the little creeks around it that feed into the larger Cattaraugus Creek. And so we found, there are hot spots in our territory from this. So this is some of the background that informs why we feel pretty strongly about protecting our lands. So, many of you of course, heard about Standing Rock in 2016, and this video was it's so high resolution that it did not want to play back on this, so we're actually going to have to go to the YouTube video.
You got it right there.
And we're going to bring it over to here. And so you'll just see the trailer for this feature documentary that we made about it. And we have to put the sound through here.
If you do not comply, you will be arrested for violations of North Dakota laws.
I'm here because I'm worried about my grandchildren and future grandkids, and about the water, and that the water is sacred.
I'd like to say, my relatives, that we are the protectors. The Maniwichoni, the water of life, we are the protectors. That's our very first medicine here.
It's unbelievable. It's just like our ancestors, you know, when like in Wounded Knee or the Battle of Little Bighorn, that's what it reminds me of, where they have to fight against, you know, guns. And
Stay back, do not come towards the
we're not
barricade.
armed or anything.
Within our camp here, you talk to any young person there, and they're like, "This is home for me. You know, I'm staying for however long it takes. I don't know what's good, what the future holds, but this is where I belong." You know, so there's a whole lot of young people who are empowered because we have a chance to be who we were meant to be.
It's one thing to view it on Facebook and social media. It's a whole nother thing to feel the vibe here. And I think that this thing that we did with renewable energy, it's going to inspire a lot of people here, because there's a lot of kids here too. The impact of what happened here is definitely going to travel back to the places that, you know, all the camp and the protectors came from.
No Keystone! This is why we are here. We are standing in solidarity with Standing Rock. We are standing in solidarity for No NAPL, Northern Access Pipeline. Yeah! Let's keep the message going. It doesn't stop here. Yeah!
All right, so does this have a laser pointer? Yes, great. All right, so Cattaraugus territory is right over here. There's West Valley Nuclear Waste Site. Here's the Allegheny territory. Right around down here is where the Kinzua Dam is. So all this area right here was flooded out. Oh yeah, got to bring the mic back up. And, you know, when many of us that went to Standing Rock for extended period of time, when we came home, we found out that they were planning a pipeline just upstream from us called NAPL, the Northern Access Pipeline, to bring fracked gas from Pennsylvania, where unfortunately you guys are experiencing all kinds of fracking, and transport it up through western New York, crossing just upstream from our territories and going up to being sold to the Canadian market. So this isn't even for domestic use of heating anybody's homes. This is just so that companies can make a profit. And of course, as many of you are aware, they're using eminent domain, which was once to put things like highways and things that were supposed to be for the greater good of society. Now it's being used for corporations so that they can make a profit. Well, after starting to engage in that battle against the Northern Access Pipeline. And we also came to find out, thanks to an amazing group out of Pennsylvania called Public Herald that you may be familiar with, that has been documenting the dangers of fracking. We found out that they were planning a fracking wastewater treatment plant right at the headwaters. This area is called the Triple Divide. There's only like 4 of these in North America, where the continental shelves came together in such a way that 3 major watersheds are born. Genesee, part of the Susquehanna, and then coming right down here to Pittsburgh, the Allegheny River. So we mobilized, and we're going to see just a little quick tidbit here. Of a trailer to another documentary that we made.
We give thanks to the water. Water is life.
Please don't experiment with our clean water source.
Protect our mother, the earth.
When you pollute this water,
Cleanest waters I've ever studied.
You're letting somebody take it for $1?
Our water bubbles.
You're on the right side of history.
we don't want to see this pollution.
Calling for the vote. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passed.
So some of you involved with FIPS may have recognized a voice there in the montage when the board members, Dr. Stoll here, was just an excellent ally during that fight. And thank you. It's so great to see that you're here and a part of this institution. So we're super protective of this river because, you know, here it was the life and sustenance for our community. Then it was used almost as a weapon against us. And in that time since, we've invested quite a bit in making it a very nice and restoring the fisheries in it. So I'm just going to show you a little clip of some of that effort.
So the whole process is as natural as we could get it. You know, the lighting we have here is provided by solar panels that are on the roof of the building. And the coldness of our waters that we use, like I said, it's usually an average of 43 degrees, and that's cool enough where we're not having to disinfect the eggs from any contaminants from surface waters, and it's cool enough to inhibit the growth of any molds or bacteria as well. You'll see when we let these go, we're going to let them go right into Christmas trees. So we're putting them right into shelter, and that shelter will also contain the food they need.
So in the interest of time, we're going to have to skip because I see a few minutes over. Hopefully we have a little wiggle room. I'll just show one more and kind of just briefly, this is a short one. So in addition to investing in our fisheries and really protecting the wildlife, we've seen, we have number of pairs of nesting eagles in our territory. Their population has rebounded significantly. We have a lot of deer, bear, hellbender, salamanders. People familiar with the hellbender? Yeah. Yay for the hellbenders. When freshwater mussels and some of these habitats are right where we live. And so another major thing is that we've invested in traditional agriculture, revitalizing that. So people think of buffalo and they think of the plains and out west, but there were always woodland buffalo. I mean, buffalo in New York, hello, right? So people don't realize that they came this far east. And so we've invested in a herd of buffalo for our community. So that's some of our agriculture department there. We're gonna have time to watch. We have a project called Onodowa Farms, means good food in our language, and so being in a very rural area that's a food desert and seeing the change in our economy over the last 100 years, when everybody in the community practically had at least a big garden and possibly livestock and good, nice sized cornfield. It's kind of decreased since the 1950s, and so there's a big effort to revitalize it, and it's very encouraging and exciting to see. But you can see those videos on the Seneca Media YouTube channel, so check them out on your own time. And I'm just going to show one last little teeny clip, just so that you see that we're also, like here, investing very strongly in renewable energy. So you get the idea. They're, pretty solar panels. You've seen them before. And just, very briefly, this is my last slide. Looking to the future, one of the major environmental issues we're dealing with is the invasive emerald ash borer. Ash trees are very central to basket makers in our community, and so it's a subject of great concern. Of course, Northern Access Pipeline they're still trying to push it through, and they've so far have had a lot of success in the courts, but we're still continuing to oppose that. Of course, we're pushing for the cleanup of the West Valley site, and there's debates whether to do a partial cleanup or a full cleanup. We're demanding a full cleanup. And then, of course, dealing with our own energy use. We have casinos; those have a terrible carbon footprint, and we're having to deal with that now, as well as how to develop a more sustainable economy when we have just a small amount of our original territory, and our economy is basically, to be quite honest, it's built on vice, selling tax-free cigarettes to the outside world, come and buy cigarettes and come gamble. And so we're really trying to figure out ways to develop sustainable tourism and things that make for a more resilient and sustainable economy. So thank you for letting me go a little over.